in that time, slaves in that time, were often marked, right? They were often marked. For what purpose? Identification. Who owns them? Who owns them? Well, you got that mark. Oh, so-and-so must own you because you got this mark on your forehead or in your ear. Or because we read also that they would pierce their ear. So there was a number of ways that they would mark their ownership on their slaves. And so this angel, this fifth angel, he says, do not harm the land, the sea, or the trees until we put a seal. I think it's interesting that he uses the word we, put a seal on their forehead of the servants of our God. So number one, these angels stand. Okay? All the calamity that's happening in the world, all the things that are going bad, they're able to stand. Why are they able to stand? Why are they able to withstand? Because they're eternal beings and they belong to who? To God. They are God's messengers. They're able to withstand all that's coming their way. And then I heard a number of those who were sealed. So these are the numbers of the people sealed. 144,000 from the tribes of Israel. And you may have heard this number. You may have had somebody come knocking on your door talking about the 144. And I don't know if you ever talked to anybody of that denomination, okay, that says there's only going to be 144,000 people that what? Not saved, that go to heaven, okay? Others can be saved, but where are they going to be? On a renewed earth, okay? Because stop and think about it. If it's just 100, that's a very large denomination. 144, you'd never know if you're going to be one of them, okay, especially through all history. And so if you actually get to talking to them about that number, most of them will actually say, I don't want to be one of the 144. I want to be one on the renewed earth because it's going to be a perfect place. It's going to be a Garden of Eden, and I get to live a brand new life on earth. Because that's where their mind is on earthly things, and they think that is heaven. It's not. So let's look at this number, 144,000. The tribes of Israel, from the tribe of Judah, 12,000 were sealed. From the tribe of Reuben, 12,000 were sealed. From the tribe of Gad, 12,000 were sealed. From the tribe of Asher, 12,000 were sealed. From the tribe of Naphtali, 12,000 were sealed. From the tribe of Manasseh, 12,000 were sealed. From the tribe of Simeon, 12,000 were sealed. From the tribe of Levi, 12,000 were sealed. From the tribe of Issachar, 12,000 were sealed. From the tribe of Zebulun, 12,000 were sealed. From the tribe of Joseph, 12,000 were sealed. From the tribe of Benjamin, 12,000 were sealed. So 12,000 times 12 tribes equals what? 144,000. So, man, you're like, 144, is that all? That's all the people that get sealed? That's kind of frightening. Are you one of the 144? Are you going to be sealed? Are you going to stand before God with your seal on your head? Not in any of those tribes. I'm out of luck, all right? I'm out of luck. I'm not in any of those tribes. A couple tribes are missing, too, out of the normal list of tribes, okay? Ephraim and Dan are both missing. And Joseph is never mentioned as one of the tribes, which is interesting, too. So he's using different wording here. And really, most Jews have lost their identity as far as which tribe they come from. They got mixed up over the years and the intermarrying and stuff. There are some that remember what tribe they're in. I had a friend in the, well, not a friend, but an acquaintance in the military who was of the tribe of Judah, or Levi, excuse me. He was actually of the tribe of Levi. And he would give a hard time to the chaplain's assistants because he was of a different tribe, and he's like, I'm a Levi, and you're blah, blah, blah. And so he would actually lord over him, and the guy who was the chaplain's assistant was a much better person, spiritually than he was. But it's just an interesting approach to all these different tribes. But he mentions these, and so 12 we know means what? 12 is an interesting number. What does it mean? Fullness of God. It's the fullness of God. But he doesn't use it once, he uses it twice. What would that mean to you? If he uses it twice, what does that mean? This is really the fullness, okay? This is the absolute fullness of God. And then he uses the number 1,000 to multiply times that 144. And then what does 1,000 mean in the Jewish tradition? Multiples, just multiples, okay? Just means a multiple number. So we have 144,000. And we know then that these 144,000 will stand. So the angels are going to stand, 144,000 are going to stand. Well, let's look a little bit at this 144,000. John says, after this, I looked, and what's he looking at? What's he looking at? He's looking at the 144,000. After this, I looked, and there before me was a great multitude that, what? No one could count. Can you count to 144,000? It'd take a while, but yeah, most of us could. John says the number he saw, he could never count. No man could count. And they were of every nation, tribe, people, language, standing before the throne and before the Lamb. And they were wearing white robes, and they were holding palm branches in their hands, and they cried out with a loud voice, "Salvation belongs to our God, who sits on the throne, and to the Lamb." All the angels were standing around the throne and around the elders and the four living creatures, and they fell down on their faces before the throne and worshiped God, saying, "Amen. Praise and glory and wisdom and thanks and honor and power and strength be to our God forever and ever. Amen." So, John looks at the same thing that the angel has presented to him, the 144,000, and what he sees is an innumerable number of people. Every nation, every tribe, every type of person you could think of, that's who he saw. Were they seeing something different? No, they were seeing the same thing, the 144 again being a symbolic number. John sees everything, all these people, and he is where? Where is John at this time? He's in the midst of them, okay? He's in the midst of them. And what is going to happen to these people? What's going to happen to them? They likewise are going to receive the seal of God on their forehead. And that seal again means what? Ownership. It means ownership. Who is it that can stand? He says, who is it that can stand? The angel can stand, the 144,000 can stand, and the multitude that no one can number, they're also going to stand. And again, I like the word withstand better than stand, okay? Because stand gives me a total different picture. It just means standing up. But what he's saying is who can withstand what is going to happen? When these four angels, when these four horsemen go onto the earth and we see conquest, war, death, famine, we see starvation, we see all this stuff happening, who is it that can withstand that? And most of us wouldn't raise our hand. Most of us wouldn't say, oh, that's me, I can do that. I can withstand that. And yet we're exactly the people that should raise our hand. We can honestly say, all those things that those angels are bringing, I can withstand. And you're saying, yeah, and you're crazy too. So this innumerable multitude, he describes them a little bit. He says they are wearing robes of white. Robes of white, and in their hands are what? Palm branches. What does a palm branch signify? My mind flashes back to Jesus entering into Jerusalem, right? And what were they signifying when they were waving those branches at Jesus as he was coming into the city? They're just trying to keep him cool? There's an honor. Royalty is getting closer. Basically, it's victory. He's conquering. Jesus is coming into Jerusalem. He told him, I'm the king. I'm the Son of God. I'm coming into Jerusalem. That's their homeland. That's the heart of their homeland. He says, I'm coming in. And so they're praising him, waving these palm branches. They signify victory. And these innumerable multitude are waving these branches, and they're wearing robes of white. And it says these robes are white. These robes are white. Were made white. How? It's kind of an ironic statement. How were those robes made white? They were washed in. How many of you do your laundry in blood? I mean, it almost sounds nonsensical, doesn't it? Again, so we know he's talking symbolically, that he's saying these pure white robes that everyone is wearing were made pure white because they were washed in Jesus' blood, or the blood of the Lamb. Wow. So what is the symbolism he's trying to share with us here? What is this whiteness he's talking about? It's not a color, though it has a significance as a color. What does white mean?
It's
Purity.
We've been washed of all our sins. We are pure.
So we've been washed, as Christians, we are washed of all of our sins. There is no stains. We are pure. Because none of us ever sin again once we're baptized, right? Oh, wait a minute, that's not right. Jesus' blood continues to wash our robes white. No matter what, no matter what. I mean, we all mess up. We all sin throughout time, okay? But his blood is always there to keep those robes white. How I'd love a detergent that would do that. That would always keep my clothes clean no matter what I did. That's Jesus. He keeps us clean as long as we are his follower, no matter what we do. The state of righteousness as well, yes. Okay? They have overcome, all right? They have overcome. What have they overcome? What have they withstood? All the things that life has thrown at them. So let's kind of try and wrap our minds around this because, well, let me back up. One of the elders asks, one of the elders that is standing there, and again, remember, how many elders are there standing there? 24. Okay, and one of those elders asked them, who are these people? Who is he asking that question to? John. So he's asking John, who are these people? How would you like to have been in John's place at that time? See all this multitude that you can't count? Who do you think they are? That's basically what he's saying, is who do you think they are? And John says, I have no clue. I have no clue who they are. Basically, he says, tell me. Tell me, who are they? And the angel says, these are those who what? Who got out, who were able to come to heaven before there was any suffering, right? Oh, they came out of the great suffering. They came through the great tribulation. When you go through something, what does that mean? You've endured it. You've already had it happen to you. So let's wrap our minds around this, because when I started really looking at this, I'm thinking to myself, ooh, wait a minute, this is really a time warp thing, okay? We've got the angels coming. The 4 angels are going to come, and they're going to do all this stuff. And then we get to this chapter, and he says, however, those that are saved, those who have received and accepted Jesus, are going to have my seal on their head, and I'm going to give that to them before they have to endure any of these things. You see that kind of strange loop there? How does God know that we need a seal on us before any of these calamities happen? This gets into people wanting to talk about predestination. Well, God determines ahead of time who's going to be saved. That's not what he's saying. He's saying you're going to be saved regardless of all this stuff All these things and all these calamities that are going to hit your life, and all of us have been faced with those. We've been faced with death and illness and divorce and all these different things in our life, and we're like, how am I to endure these things? And how do we endure them? We endure them because of our faith in Jesus Christ and knowing that we are sealed. We have his mark on our head, and that when we pass, and we will all pass, where will we be? We will be standing before the throne of God as one of the innumerable people. That will be us. You and me standing there as one of those dressed in white waving palm branches. Because why? Because we have the victory. Remember the short theme of this book. Okay? There's a war. Jim, what's the next one? Jim says it nicer than I do. Go ahead. No, I'm talking about the three-step conclusion, the three-step summary of the book of Revelation. So let's say all three of them then. God wins. Choose wisely. And I say don't be stupid. Jim says it much nicer than I do. Choose wisely. That's the whole theme of Revelation. God wins. Choose wisely. We already know who wins this thing. It doesn't matter what goes on with you and I in our life and how bad things get, God wins. We are never told, in fact, we're told the opposite, even in Matthew 24. We are never told that we are not going to suffer. He never says that. Jesus never promised us a lack of suffering. Okay? In fact, he says that even our closest to us will make us suffer. We will all suffer. We'll all go through suffering and trials. Those in chapter 6 that he describes, and similar to those in Matthew 24, those similar into Luke 23, we're all going to suffer at some point. But he says, no matter what, those who are faithful to me will overcome. They will be able to withstand. So we see that the angels can stand. We see that, I'm going to get to this first. And then one of the elders asked me about the robes, and I answered to him, sir, you know. And he said, these are those who have come out of the great tribulation and washed the robes and made them white in the blood of the Lamb. Therefore, they are before the throne of God, and they serve him day and night in his temple. And he who sits on the throne will shelter them with his presence. Never again will they hunger. Never again will they thirst. The sun will not beat down on them, nor any scorching heat. For the Lamb at the center of the throne will be their shepherd, and he will lead them to springs of living water, and God will wipe away every tear from their eyes. He's talking about a victory that they're going to have. So who's going to stand? We're going to see that I'd hit the wrong button. I'm good at these buttons. The Christian will stand as well, okay? The angels will stand, the 144,000, which is the multitude that no one can count, and you and I will stand. And he says there's beauty in our standing because why? What's that going to mean for us? We're faithful servants, but what's the benefit from standing for God? Standing at the throne of God. And he says, here's the thing. You're never going to be hungry. Any of you hungry right now? I never eat breakfast. I just kind of, by the end of the service, I'm usually pretty hungry. You're never going to hunger. You're never going to thirst. He says, I'm going to place you in my tent. I'm going to cover you with my tent. That's literally what he's saying here. And you'll never have to worry about water because I'm going to give you living water. There'll be no scorching sun, no heat. We all whine and complain when there's heat, right? My wife likes to say she'd rather it be cold than hot because she said there's only so many clothes I can take off when it's hot. But when it's cold, you can just keep adding clothes, okay? But he said there's not going to be any scorching heat. You don't have to worry about the heat. I've covered you with my tent. God's tent himself is going to cover us. And he says the Lamb is going to be your shepherd. Does that not strike you as funny? Who is usually in charge? The shepherd. And the shepherd usually leads the lamb or sheep. And yet here he says the lamb is the shepherd. John's poetry is just amazing, the stuff that he writes and the way he writes to share with us. And so we see that this lamb is going to lead us to running water. Okay? Not stagnant water, not stale water, but running water, fresh water. And then he tells us something that should bring great comfort to everyone. The very last line that he uses in this chapter. And God will wipe away every tear. Well, what if it's from pain? Every tear. What's from the loss of somebody? Every tear. What if it's the loss of somebody who's really close to me who never accepted God? That brings a lot of tears, doesn't it? He says, I'll wipe away that tear too. I don't know how God's going to do that. I honestly don't. I have no clue how God is able to bring us into his presence and wipe away every tear, every thought that would make me sad. But he says, I will wipe away every tear. And that's a beautiful promise to each one of us that we can rely on from this chapter. What's interesting about chapter 7 or 6 is we went through 6 of the 7 seals. Jesus had them in, was the only one who could open those seals. He opens them in chapter 6. We get to chapter 7 in great anticipation as to the 7th seal. What's in that one? What is that going to tell me? And he never talks about it. He will next week, okay? Realize again that the Bible didn't have chapters and verses and when it was originally written. For some reason, man has decided to split the last seal out and put it at the beginning in chapter 8. I don't know why. I think it's an interesting location for it, but it leaves us in anticipation for next week. We'll learn about the 8th or the 7th seal, and then we'll also get into the 7 trumpets. And if you think the 7 seals were interesting and confusing, wait till you get to the trumpets, because they get much more interesting. So, any final comment or thoughts? I know I'm a little ahead of time today. I condensed it a little bit finally. Any final thoughts? Yes, sir. Exactly. Yep. Already got their palms, they're all ready to go. And yeah, his point, if you didn't hear, he said that the common thing was on a victory, the victor would ride in on a horse and they would be waving their palm branches. And so that's the anticipation. Jesus coming into Jerusalem, they're anticipating this victory. And so in they come with, here he is, we're waiting. He's going to come in on a white horse. We got our palms ready. And around the corner comes Jesus riding. I don't know if you've seen a donkey colt, but your feet literally drag the ground Okay? And isn't that a triumphant look? I mean, he wants us to see these things, right? Is that triumphant look to you? No, that's a very humbling look, isn't it? So even at his greatest point, Jesus is saying, I'm humble. And his feet dragging the ground as he rides this colt into Jerusalem, but still signifying that he is victorious. He is our victor, and that's what we need to remember. Any other final thoughts? You had one. Yes, ma'am.
On the 144,000 group,
Yes.
the denomination, they want to stay in the new earth.
Yes.
Well, you're going to be reliving or living through tears and disappointment, and they don't want to go to the throne of God.
I think, and I'm not going to speak for them, but I think their anticipation is that those things will also pass, but they'll be living here on those. And then only, like I said, only the select 144,000. And I've never heard who that 144 is. Who's in that group? I don't know. I mean, they may not know either. So, but yeah, that's the distinction that they have. Yes. Mm-hmm. If they were of the 144. That's interesting. She's saying that her daughter actually went to a service with this denomination, and they had a communion service, but no one partook of the communion service because none of them knew if they were of the 144. How sad. To me, that's very sad, because I get to partake of the communion with Jesus, right? Every Sunday, I can partake of communion with Jesus. Not with just you guys, which is great, but with Jesus himself. And I get to do that every Sunday. And at some point in our life, we'll do it every day, because there will not be days anymore. It'll just be eternity. And that's hard for my little mind to grasp, but it's going to happen. So thank you for your attention. I appreciate it. Next week, please read chapters 8 and 9. Don't get frustrated with the trumpets. And we'll get on to those next week. Thank you.